Hey there, fellow adult collectors. Welcome back. David Eon here with something up from the museum. And what I have to show you here today is the 1984 LJN V Enemy Visitor action figure. And it says Enemy Visitor action figure right there. Or is it? Is this an action figure or is this a doll? Well, it says action figure, and it's meant to be an action figure. However, that is the LJN Michael Jackson doll body. They basically just took LJN took the Michael Jackson body and just recast it to be the Enemy Visitor action figure. And they gave him the removable human head or human mask with a pair of removable sunglasses, and yeah, those are Michael Jackson sunglasses again, so those were reutilized. And they manufactured for him a gun, and I'll turn this so that you can see this, because this is a sealed package, so I'm not fit to open it. But there's his V Enemy Visitor gun. That is a proper replica of the gun that was used in the show, although he's not pictured holding that gun on the box. On the box, he's holding something else. He's holding a gun from somewhere else. Don't know where they got that one from. But this is the V Enemy Visitor action figure from LJN 1984. He has 8 points of articulation. That is jointed at the waist, hips, knees, shoulders, and neck. So that bend in the elbow is permanent. He's permanently got that bend in the elbow, nothing you can do about it. So, like I said, it's all a matter of perspective. I mean, it's obviously a doll body, but they call it an action figure. He's about just under 12 inches tall, sealed in the box. And again, this is basically the same box style that was used for Michael Jackson as well. Now, it's hard to tell from looking at this because he has an obvious yellow background. This is a clear cello window, which is very rare for these. The V Enemy Visitor action figures have a big problem with those cello windows turning yellow and getting very brittle and cracking and splitting and chipping off. Which, if you ever tried to collect the LJN Dune figures, you know what I'm talking about. If I turn it sideways, you can tell a little better how clear that is in comparison. There is a little bit of a dent right there. I'm not fit to mess with it because they never put a crease in this edge. This is a rounded edge because they just sort of fitted it into the box without putting a crease, which causes it to crack and split. That's another problem that is common with these figures. I'm going to show you the back of the box here because it demonstrates how you can peel his human face off to reveal the lizard face, and the tongue is functional. So there is a button on his back that you can press to make his tongue flick in and out of his head, which is kind of a neat feature. V, of course, was a miniseries that aired on NBC. It was produced in 1983, and this is the original miniseries, which is considered to be one of the best miniseries ever made. You know, if there's a top 10 list for miniseries, V, the original miniseries, is on it. And it's basically a story about Nazi Germany occupation retold as a sci-fi show. It was very well received at the time. They did a great job with it. So great, in fact, that they made a second miniseries called V: The Final Battle, which was not quite as good as the first one, but it was still pretty decent. It was still a pretty decent miniseries. And that miniseries did so well. And keep in mind, this is all in the same time frame, between 1983 to 1985. They came out with a television show, V, the series. And this, of course, is V, the complete series, all the episodes. This, again, did not do nearly as well. One season, one single season, and then they just hung it up. NBC gave up. The original miniseries was quite an expensive endeavor. If I remember correctly, they spent over $1 million on the miniseries, which was unheard of in those days. But they knocked it out of the park with the original series. And they had a lot of star power. There was a lot of recognizable faces in that show. Mark Singer was in it, who was a very popular actor at the time. Michael Ironside, who, if you are familiar with 70s and 80s sci-fi, even 90s, because he was in Total Recall, you know who Michael Ironside is. And Robert Englund as the timid vegetarian alien, since the aliens were primarily carnivores and human beings were on the menu. But Robert Englund was in this series, and he was the wimpy alien. Sharp contrast from Freddy Krueger. I remember this series really well from when I was a kid, which is why I wanted the figure. And this is the only piece that LJN produced. This is it. So if you got one vintage V Enemy Visitor figure from LJN, you're done. You don't need another one. There were a few action figures, smaller ones, that were made that were only sold in the South American market. And I know a lot of you are very familiar with the infamous G.I. Joe and Masters of the Universe Argentinian variants that are a nightmare to find. V Enemy Visitor falls into that category because they produced a couple of things for that market that are just really, really hard to find. This one is tough enough to find in decent shape, sealed in the box, but you can find it. You can find one with a bad window for a pretty decent price, or if you're willing to pay a little bit more, you can find one with a window that is still intact and not all clouded out. Are you old enough to remember this miniseries? And they did try to rekindle this series too. They tried to bring this series back in, I think it was 2012. They tried to bring this show back, and that didn't quite cut it either. It just didn't make it. Sometimes you don't need to bring something back. Sometimes you can just leave it alone. This was probably enough. And this was based on the original story because it was a book written in 1935. I think the title of the book was It Can't Happen Here. And like I said, it was a jab at Nazi Germany and the occupations. So that's why this worked so well, even though it was, translated as sci-fi. This was okay. This was still pretty good. But the TV show kind of lost something. It lost a lot and just didn't feel right. And I even remember thinking that as a child, even though I enjoyed watching it as a child. Do you remember seeing this show? Do you have this figure, or is this something that you'd be interested in? Tell me about it in the comments section down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think this is a cool figure? Something that you'd like to add to your collection? A nice piece of television nostalgia, even though they basically just swapped out the head and changed the outfit of Michael Jackson. Which the LJN Michael Jacksons, by the way, they made 3 of them, and you can get those pretty cheap too. I don't have one. I used to have a set of the Michael Jacksons, but I don't have them anymore. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below, or what you thought of the show. I didn't see the new show, the 2012 version. I didn't watch it. I heard it wasn't that great. Doesn't surprise me. Maybe I'll watch it sometime and just make my own opinion. I like the artwork. Part of this is just photographs. Like, that's obviously a photograph from the show. That's a poster from the show, one of the propaganda posters from the show, and then another picture of a soldier. And then they give you this drawing, which is pretty decent. I always appreciate the artwork on vintage action figure and toy packaging. Something that modern toy producers have kind of forgotten about. But yeah, please do give the video a thumbs up if you got something out of it. I hope that you did. Share it if you can. Subscribe if you're new. And check out some of the other stuff that we do on this channel. We do a lot more than just vintage showcases on this channel. We do museum tours, and I show vintage toy and food advertising commercials, which is kind of fun. We have toy discussions. We do a weekly roundup. We have a lot of things going on this channel. A little bit of something for everybody. So check us out. Check us out. Subscribe if you're new. Join the family. And I hope you enjoyed seeing this today. And what more can I say then? But thanks for watching. And we will see you again soon.